Robbie Williams Rewind.
And so how did things change with the record company when Rob became the big megastar? Was there more pressure for him to release more of the same or keep bringing in the money? You know, did you get the opposite kind of problem when things started really going very well?
Well, this is very normal.
Yeah.
Seamlessly, all the same people that wanted Robbie dropped are all now wearing tour jackets and Robbie Williams T-shirts around the office going, aren't we great? We broke Robbie Williams.
Yeah.
I mean, neither surprised, shocked or upset.
No.
That's just how it is.
And he said that they weren't very happy when he announced he wanted to do a swing album. How did that go down? How was the mood around that?
I think the record company were probably taken by surprise by that. But see, that is David Enhoven and myself work quite, on the creative end of things, tended to agree most of the time. And Rob's instinct early on not to make, not to enter the world of manufactured pop.
Yeah.
So we'd basically, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. You don't get anywhere if you ignore the artist's intuition.
Yeah.
And the artists that are successful are the artists that have good intuitions about themselves. I've worked with and met incredibly talented people who have terrible instincts for their own careers. Mm. And the hardest thing, so going back to talent scouting, when you see somebody in a club, it doesn't happen like this anymore, but when you hear somebody's early work and meet them for the first time, you can't tell if they'll have great instincts for themselves.
Right.
Because, how they'll react to what happens next, how things evolve. And the opportunities to see people perform live aren't there anymore because the clubs don't exist anymore where people learnt to be good.
Yeah.
If you go back to the 60s, no one came to see you until you'd done 10,000 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you were good. By the time the Beatles got seen, they'd done a couple of, they'd done Hamburg. Mm-hmm. They were good.
Yeah.
They could play. You're now dealing with people that may have made a video. I still watch Later with Jules.
Yeah.
And you see people, you think, God, I wonder if you've ever done a gig. I mean, there was somebody who got signed recently who'd done about 10 gigs, but it's sort of not even like proper club gigs. And you think, well, that's all right. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But now you're going to have, if you don't stay in,
like
if you expect this to work inside a financial year, you're in for a horrible shock. And then you see the amount of money that's being spent. You think, this isn't going to work. You've got to know in your head, roughly, you've got to have a sort of a timeline of where this artist is in their development.
Yeah.
And then if it's very, very early, you don't spend 250,000 quid making the album.
No.
You spend 30,000 quid. Not because there's anything wrong with them.
Yeah.
But, a handful of people come to you very developed. A handful. Or somebody that's already good gets dropped from another label for no good reason or some good reason or whatever. They've fallen out. And you pick something up. I used to do this a lot. You pick things up. Delamitri. You pick things up where other labels have given up.
Yeah.
Who are halfway there. Who are already good. Maybe even better than they know. That's certainly the case with Delamitri. They were quite developed. Mm. It wasn't a start from scratch. Right. They'd done more than a dozen youth clubs. They were already quite sophisticated. And they were intelligent people. As a random example. But that is, I think a lot of things now, I can't think of the last time. What's the most recent band that's had some commercial success? UK-based Wet Leg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there are bands that make a really good living where having hits isn't their main business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's a whole business model now of bands that can tour, do nice merchandise, have a proper hardcore fan base.
Yeah.
It might not be a gigantic fan base.
No.
So although they, you see bands, you think they'll have a number one album for 1 week because they've done 10 physical formats for the fan base and some very nice hooded sweatshirts. And that's their business.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's morphing all the time. And also, what's a hit anymore?
Well,
I mean,
true.
I don't know. Are people tied to, I don't even know that that having a top 40 chart means anything anymore.
No.
And I think it's different. I think you've got to look at, it's like, it's a case by case basis.
Yeah.
And there are artists that just literally have a single track like dance music.
Yeah.
When house music first took off, with a guy called Jeff Young, we started one of the first dance labels in the UK inside a major label. It was up until this 1983, 82, 83. Up until that point, it was an independent. Dance music was in the independent sector. And we started a label at Phonogram. But nobody bought the albums. It was almost pointless doing albums.
Yeah.
But there was a sort of loyal following that just bought the singles.
Yeah.
And I think there are a lot of pop acts who can put out a track. They don't even have to come off cycle.
Yeah.
So the idea of you doing an album every 3 years and then going on the road for a year,
it
doesn't work like that for a lot of people anymore.
No.
Yeah.
So you've got to think of everything. You've got to have a much more flexible approach to who and what you're working with. There's no point forcing someone out on the road for a year who's not very good live.
No.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So one of your roles is to keep the album from sinking during the writing recording process. And how hard was that during Escapology when obviously there were tensions between Rob and Guy?
Well, pre-internet, I did a lot of traveling and lived in a lot of hotels because you had to be on site. I mean, the technology exists now.
Yeah.
Where I can literally, I'd still prefer to be in the room. It's much, much better to actually be in the studio. And we had a great day yesterday with Martin Teref and Carl. But back then, that was normal. If you were the sort of A&R person I am, and you were involved in the recording side. So I would literally, I'd live in the Sunset Marquee for 4 to 6 weeks.
Right.
So I arrived, put my case down. Rob had rented Mama Cassie's house on Mulholland, and David was already there. And I'm thinking, shall I just get some room service? We're in the studio tomorrow. And David on the phone, hello, old boy. It's a bit of a problem. Rob's not going in the studio tomorrow. Do you want to come up to the house? Luckily, I've had my Hertz Rent-A-Wreck delivered. So I think, just got off the plane, I'm starving, hungry. I'm starting to feel that sort of jet laggy oiliness.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, I'll do it. It's about 10 at night. So I drive up to this, the old Mama Cass house, where Zach Starkey, they rented Ringo. Zach was brought up there. It's meant to be haunted.
Oh, right, yeah.
Mama Cass's old house. And Rob just, it's not a great time. It just has to be said. It's not, Rob's back on the Rob's back on the Magic Roundabout.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make the songs, it's interesting. Just stop at the Magic Roundabout for a while. It doesn't make you stupid or untalented, but it makes you emotionally unstable and a bit unreliable.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that Rob can't see straight, but deep, something's telling him not to go in the studio with Guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the songs exist. We've flown a band out there. Because at this point, I mean, the pressure's on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The big deal's being done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm suddenly like, with all sorts of people I don't speak to at other record labels, I'm suddenly Mr. Popular. People are pushing me into bathrooms, getting checkbooks out. Do you want to come and work with us, Chris? As Robbie, as Rob's deal at EMI is, the first deal comes to an end.
Yeah.
So I think everyone's stressed out, and it manifests itself in different ways.
Yeah.
Anyway, without telling another long, involved story, Rob does go to the studio the next day. But there's an element of, have you seen the scene where he's on a scooter in a Superman outfit doing vocals?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So anyway, between Josie and myself and David, Rob comes to the studio. Rob was never, the recording studio wasn't somewhere he loved.
No.
So, watching someone comp his vocal on Pro Tools wasn't his idea of a fun day out. And he didn't really like being made to sing it over and over again.
No. He still doesn't, I think.
No, he hates it.
Yes.
He hates it. In fact, he often, the thing that has his feelings, sometimes he'll do a demo and sing it, and that's the best he'll ever sing it.
Yeah.
Because it's what he wrote about. Everything about feel is the demo vocal.
Yeah.
And he's right. And there are he often doesn't want to re-sing things because he feels that he has that emotional attachment and gut feeling about the vocal he's already done.
Yeah.
The performance. It might be technically imperfect, but that doesn't bother Rob.
Mm-hmm.
That bothers whoever's in that seat, Steve Power or Richard Flack or whoever, and wants him to sing it again. But that's been a constant theme throughout. Even in the really bonkers beginnings, when, I'm sure, when it's like, I remember we recorded at Trident 2, I've Been Expecting You, and Rob was not turning up. And a very, very attractive receptionist at Trident 2. So I get her to meet Rob at the pub nearest the studio and then walk him to the studio. Whatever got the job done.
Yeah.
Whatever got the job done. But interestingly, we took the musicians we took to LA to make Escapology were sort of harder-nosed professional session musicians.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Though it was a bit of, Phil Spaulding, the bass player, also sadly recently left the planet. Phil had relapsed shortly before the flight. There was some interesting managing to be done, but I think it's hard to put into words.
Yeah.
You just deal with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'd grown up in an era that wasn't terribly well disciplined, and where it was not abnormal for people to turn up to the booked studio, take a shed loads of drugs and try and write a song.
Yeah.
And often be there at 4 a.m, having got absolutely fuck all out of it. But in that sort of late 60s, early 70s period, it was looser.
Yeah.
Everything was looser. And also, they weren't spending as much money on marketing. They weren't making videos. And everything was a bit cheaper.
Yeah.
And so your main, and also the deals weren't that big.
No, right.
And so, money would get wasted at the recording studio.
Right.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be all like, rehearsed up, ready, march in, 3 tracks a day.
Yeah.
That did happen. Not everybody was, off their tits, hoping that inspiration would strike. But so the guy was very organised. It just needed Rob to turn up and sing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they'd done the arrangements. the musicians had rehearsed. So a rehearsed band flew to Los Angeles to record. And we're in big budget world now. We're successful. Mm-hmm. So we've got a guy there with the most ridiculous collection of vintage amps and guitars. We're in the big time. We're at Conway Studios. And it's almost too perfect on paper.
Yeah.
And then you've got the whole thing between, you've got this. I mean, it's interesting. Rob wanted to write with other people.
Yeah.
Which I think Guy should have embraced. Because it's not an unnatural development.
No.
And I think a sort of a bad turning point is Guy produced a version of Come Undone, and it was bloody awful. But I don't think Guy... I think Guy had good instincts about the songs he'd written with Rob,
mm-hmm.
and Guy wasn't a professional record producer.
Mm.
He volunteered to produce Old Before I Die, and within the context of what they were doing as that group of people, it worked. So Guy producing what Rob and himself wrote with that group of musicians, with Steve Power on board, that worked.
Yeah.
But Guy and Steve going out to produce other artists, now they weren't jobbing record producers.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, more than Guy, was very adaptable professional record producer.
Yeah.
I got Steve to do a Joe Cocker record. He could adapt to almost anything. But Guy wasn't a professional record producer. He was just a very talented musician and writer, who understood, and who understood enough. And was it in his head that he needed Steve? It doesn't matter. None of this matters. All that matters is it worked.
Yeah.
To try and be to try and make some sort of to do some sort of scientific analysis. None of that matters. All that matters is the results. And so that all that mattered doing Escapology was to keep it moving forward.
Yeah.
You knew what bits weren't going to trip up.
Yeah.
Right.
So actually, Josie became, I'll get Rob to the studio.
Okay.
I became, I'll make sure Phil Spalding can speak and play. Because they were our two problems.
Yeah.
Right, Phil had fallen off the wagon, and Rob hadn't fallen off the wagon. He'd been off the wagon for a bit, and he'd met people in LA, and he wanted to branch out, And then it gets into Rob's head that Guy deliberately screws up the production on anything he doesn't write.
Yeah.
I think he did screw up the production on something he didn't write. But Steve, it wasn't difficult. The version of Come Undone that's on the record, it's a hit. Steve produced.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But, it didn't. There's always a way. It didn't have to be.
Yeah.
I guess my job is not to flap.
Right.
Yeah.
If you could describe my job in the shortest possible sentences, it's Chris's job not to flap. So when things, like Josie sent the band home before we'd finished the record because she got a bit managey about the hotel bills. And they wrote another song. They wrote Revolution.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's all right. I just get on the phone, round up a few people I know, put a band together. So we ended up with Steve Ferroni from Tom Petty's band. We ended up with a fantastic musician.
I love the song Revolution.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, that's American Session guys.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's always a solution.
Yeah.
So I think, by this point, I have done it for a few years.
Yeah.
All you do is whatever drama is going on. It's not my drama. It's your drama. I'm going to try and sort this out.
Yeah.
So there's a way through this.
Yeah.
There is often a turning point where it's abandoned ship.
Yeah.
But there was at no point during Escapology did I think abandon ship.
No.
I mean, mad things happened.
Yeah.
I mean, David had gone back to England and only Josie was still in LA from the management team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And obviously they're doing this new deal with EMI while we're recording.
Yeah.
Which I think was half the cause of all the problems.
Right.
Yeah.
A few distractions.
Underlying, lottery win that was sort of out here on the horizon.
Yeah.
So they're negotiating with EMI. Other labels are obviously pitching in. I get back to the Sunset Marquee and I've got a message to call Lucian Grange, who's discovered I'm in LA. And, he's interested in signing Robbie Williams. So 2 or 3 days later, Josie says, I'm going to go meet Doug Morris and Lucian Grange at blah, blah hotel. We're going to have to play them some music. So David's gone back to England. You're going to have to come. I'm like, I work for EMI, Josie. She said, I can't DJ. You're going to have to play the music. You're going to have to come to the meeting. And I thought, lucky I know Lucian. So I called Lucian quietly and said, look, you don't have to tell Doug Morris, but I'm going to come to the meeting as the sort of, representative of the music bit of this. And he said, well, that's fine, Chris. You'll be working for me soon anyway. And, that's just a little insight into what goes on all the time.
Yeah.
I was terribly popular for a few weeks and then I wasn't.
Yeah.
I bet.
I can imagine.
Hi, I'm Robbie Williams, and you're listening to Robbie Williams Rewind with the Champions.
Moving into the intensive care, Rudebox, Reality Killed the Video Star progress sort of period. It's quite a big period. Firstly, did you play any part in Rob meeting and writing with Stephen Duffy?
No.
No?
This is what happened. So we go into air to finish off some swing mixes. We fly Al Schmidt in. American producers do not like leaving America and working in strange studios. But I knew Al quite well and I talked him into doing it. He had a nice time. Anyway, so we fly Al in. He fancies air. We book into air. In a cupboard at the top of the building is Stephen.
Oh.
Unbeknown to us, our keyboard player, Planet Claire, is friendly with Stephen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And they've worked together. Is there a relationship? I don't know. I don't know when they started their relationship. Anyway, so Claire inadvertently introduces Stephen to Rob.
Right.
And Rob doesn't tell me that he's written 2 or 3 songs with Stephen. And then he does. And I can't remember if I've gone round to his place. But it says, I want to play you some Pure Francis stuff.
God, yeah.
I said, who's Pure Francis? He went, me. I said, I've written these songs with Stephen Duffy. Now, I've met Stephen when he was Stephen Tintin Duffy in the Lilac Time.
Yeah.
Like years before.
Yeah.
But we don't know each other well. But I find I can connect to Stephen quite easily. We get on well. And we start some recording at Air. And Stephen's not a record producer either. So I'm watching them work to see who's missing.
Mm-hmm.
And Richard Strange, bless him, isn't Steve Power. For reasons we've outlined earlier, David, the management have decided if Guy's gone, Steve's gone. My first suggestion is to bring Steve Power back.
Yeah.
To support. I mean, Steve Power and Stephen Duffy are now really good friends.
Mm-hmm.
They're really close. I think Stephen's helped them with the later Lilac Time stuff.
Right.
We all became. When I still speak to Claire and Stephen. Something happens and you're connected forever. So it's just a question of staying focused.
Yeah.
on getting something very, very good.
Yeah.
So I talked to Stephen. We've got similar taste in musicians in that sort of adult indie LA, John Bryan, Amy Mann world. He knows a lot of those people.
Yeah.
So we decide, Rob's living in LA.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. And Rob, by this point, Rob's got a little studio in the house.
Yeah.
Because Rob's not coming to the studio anymore. The studio's coming to him.
Yeah.
So we've got a good setup at the old house in Clarendon. So we do all the vocals there and a certain amount. So Stephen and Rob do all the prep work and the demoing. And Stephen's much, much less controlling and lets Rob loose. Lets Rob do what he likes. Which ultimately, again, it's I'm repeating myself, but if the artist hasn't understood or bought into what he's doing and why he's doing it, disaster awaits.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you let these things evolve, and good and bad stuff pops up, and you try and get the better songs recorded with the best people available.
Yeah.
And it's all down to the, it's so much of it is the network of people you've built up over the years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's always a drummer, there's always a guitarist, there's always an engineer.
Yeah.
And that somehow the jigsaw fits together. But no, Claire introduced Rob to Stephen.
Yeah. Well, it all worked out quite well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it worked out brilliantly.
Very well.
Yeah.
And then obviously we got Rudebox very swiftly afterwards.
Yeah, well, see, this really spooked Stephen. So we're in A&M Studios, now called Henson Studios, a company I used to work for. So A&M's that fantastic Charlie Chaplin lot on La Brea and Sunset. It's a brilliant recording studio. We're in Studio D, and Jerry Meehan is in LA. He's playing bass on Intensive Care. And then we've got Matt Chamberlain, that was Tori Amos's drummer, and some other American musicians that I've met through Crowded House and Neil Finn, that Stephen already knows through his connections. So we've put a pretty good band together to make Intensive Care. I've got Bob Clearmountain lined up to mix it. And Jerry and Rob start writing. And Stephen says to me one day, for fuck's sake, we haven't finished this album yet. And he's writing the next one with Jerry in the lounge. But that's not, again, I just think, well, that's, that's his flow.
Yeah.
Let's just manage it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think they're doing, my memory of it is he's in France doing the NRJ Awards or something. And then Rob announces to David and Josie, I don't know if Tim was there, that he wants to do this album. And the original, so I remember talking to Danny and Kelvin about it. We had a work in progress. All the demos said PET 8.
Right.
We did. There have been a few of these. Pure Francis, Terry Stouse, Luke Moody. So quite a few projects. He has a sort of name. Yeah. Whether it's a character or anyway. I still use them in my computer. The demos for that period will say Terry Stouse.
Right.
For instance. I've never bothered to change it to Robbie Williams. I know. It's my filing system. I know where everything is.
Yeah.
So Rob announces to management that he wants to do Rudebox. And so I see myself as a facilitator. And when everyone goes, oh shit, it's not going to be a Robbie Williams album with Guy, all I'm thinking is, we're in with talented people, right? Until we've got a body of work, who the fuck knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're just going to try and make the best record you can. And if anything pops its head up that could be a single, great.
Yeah.
But to do it any other way is to do it backwards.
Yeah.
Particularly when you're working with an artist that's running off intuition. I mean, you do meet people that write as a job, you know, in a quite sort of studied way.
Yeah.
And you meet, you know, people that are just waiting to be struck by lightning. There's no right way of doing this. If you don't respond to, you know, if you don't actually deal with what's really in front of you, you're going to get lost really quickly, and it's going to just be a disaster. And if you try and force it to be something it's not, so my instinct is to get the best out of whatever you're presented with, because it's a process. If you try and stop artists doing what they want to do, it'll make, you know, you'll end up ill.
Yeah.
You know, everyone will end up ill.
Yeah.
And it can sometimes, it's a journey. So the idea that you go along in this neat straight line where you put an album of pop out and you have 3 hits, and then you put another, you do a tour, it's nonsense.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, David Bowie's career, I mean, I think of it, you know, just off the top of my head, there's loads of examples of this. Where in order to get to the next one that does 7 million with 4 hits on it, you might have to take a little journey off to the side. Right?
Yeah.
The problem is translating that into record business.
Right.
Yeah.
Because when you go into the label and go, okay, off the back of Escapology, off the back of Intensive Care, we're going to do a sort of side project. It's something Rob's always wanted to do. Right? I get why he's doing it. It's actually a really good idea.
Yeah.
And there's a resistance.
Yeah.
Because it's not more of the same.
Mm-hmm.
But he needed to do it artistically, didn't he?
Yeah, but that's, I don't know. I don't know to what extent that is understood and embraced, because that's the reality.
Yeah.
And you know, I'd say every artist I've ever worked with, there's something different in everybody.
Yeah.
And if you've got to recognise that and work with that, or you're up a fucking tree lost.
Yeah. That's one of our favourite albums.
Yeah,
it's very off the time, but
it's very interesting. The Cool Police at EMI, who were trying to get me fired and Rob dropped, that's their favourite album.
Yeah. It's great.
Interesting.
Oh.
But it was great fun to make.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, it's unfortunate. I'll own up. I think we made a mistake putting Rudebox out as the first single.
Yeah.
I think we should have put Love Light out as the first single.
Yeah, Rob says that.
We worked with Mark Ronson before he was Mark Ronson.
Yeah.
I also think the King of the Bongo.
Oh, yeah.
But the one that really got away is She's Madonna.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Classic, yeah.
That should have been the first single.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
It is.
And the concept of the song.
Yeah, it's great.
You know what the song's about?
Oh, yeah.
It's genius. That might be my favourite track.
Oh, okay.
Now. I mean, it changes all the time.
Yeah.
But I mean, as a body of, I mean, what's wrong with it? It's as good as anything he's ever done.
Yeah, oh, totally.
Absolutely. Yeah, it just got torn apart.
And the whole concept of it.
Yeah.
But the idea that it's almost like the media and the record business saying, "Oh, you can't do that."
Yeah.
Or Robbie Williams, where's Angels Mark 9?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It was genius, but they just didn't, unfortunately, want to see that.
Yeah.
I think some people did see that,
like,
but it wasn't the
David
story
Bowie
they wanted
had to
tell.
do Tin Machine to get to whatever he did next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not fucking robots.
No. So was there a bit of added pressure to make Reality Killed the Video Star sound a little bit more mainstream?
Not really. No, but that was... He wanted to work with Danny and Kelvin, who'd been around in the background forever.
Yeah.
Right? And they were very involved with Rudebox.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Right? We did a lot of that. Jerry's... the first version of Wendy House. And, you know, they're very interwoven. I mean, Kelvin and Danny, they're those guys at the Antwerp Vinyl Fair, finding, you know, rare groove releases that nobody knows about. When they came up, I'm happy to stand corrected by Rob. I'm pretty sure Kelvin and Danny came up with Todd Terje. That dun 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 dun.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that it was Kelvin who suggested "I'm in Ecstasy When You Lie Next to Me," Barry White.
It was, yeah.
Oh, yes.
And that gave birth to Rock DJ.
We talked to him about that, yeah.
Yeah, we had that.
And Millennium, I mean, they've been, they were around on the periphery all the time, Danny and Kelvin. They've been part of this.
Yeah.
Quietly.
Yeah. And
he wanted to write a whole load of stuff with them. And he'd written with one or two other people. The guy, one of the guys he co-wrote Bodies with. Anyway, that's a whole other story. And Danny and Kelvin didn't think they could produce it. And at this point, again, I mean, I might think, I don't know, somebody's the best producer, that's ever been born. But if I'll go back in time. Years and years ago, I was involved with putting together a band called Big Country. And the rhythm section had worked as session musicians on Pete Townshend's solo work. And Chris Thomas produced. I discovered this drummer and bass player because of my friendship with Chris Thomas. So I thought I'd give him first shot at producing Big Country. For reasons you can't write down, it didn't work.
Right.
Chris didn't connect with Stuart Adamson for whatever reason. So we tried Steve Lillywhite and it worked. Now, they're both great record producers, but it's the chemistry thing again. So I've got a list of people who might be able to connect up all the dots between Danny and Kelvin and Rob, who are experienced, right? And Trevor Horn and myself have discussed, he was always slightly disgusted with me for taking Robbie to, in his mind, taking Robbie to Guy Chambers and not him.
Oh, okay.
I'm generalising, but I mean, Trevor has wondered, eating supper at night, why his old mate Chris Briggs hadn't brought Robbie Williams down to him. And of all the people on the list, the only name that appealed to Rob, because ultimately he's making the decision, not me.
Yeah,
I'm just going like, any one of these 8 blokes might work.
Right.
And Rob goes, I fancy that one. Can you try? And if it doesn't work,
Yeah.
As I say, it's all an informed experiment. So, yeah, Rob feels confident that Trevor can pull it off. We put Danny and Kelvin in a studio in Salem West to carry on doing, the sort of background work. And then Trevor puts his band together, which is, interesting, for someone that's sort of people think of as someone that makes program records. Trevor starts with a live band.
Right.
Right, so Anne Dudley, that does all the string arrangements, plays piano. He plays bass. He sometimes gets somebody in. He gets Chris Bruce. Steve Lipson plays guitar. And Ash Sohn was his drummer of choice, who I knew because he was he transformed Delamitri live. The one thing that was missing in Delamitri's life was a great drummer, and then they stumbled upon Ash, who's a fantastic drummer. Yeah. So Ash was Trevor's favourite drummer at the time. So, and we worked on just getting those songs in, taking them from Danny and Kelvin's demos to something that I think, Trevor's from a touring background. I think what we're thinking a lot of the time is this has got to be played live at some point. So if it's just a load, you see people, I go to gigs and I think, what am I doing here? We're just miming to track. Or it's 80% track. If I'm in a room watching music, I like it. I'm older. I do prefer it if I'm not listening to the record with somebody singing over the top to themselves. Which I see a lot of.
Yeah.
So in Trevor's mind, we're trying to adapt that to something that will sound good and can ultimately be performed, and there's not much else to say about that.
Okay.
It was very hard work getting one or two of those songs to translate. And Trevor's incredibly fastidious. his attention to details ridiculous.
Yeah.
He's got a fantastic ear, Trevor. Yeah. I mean, he's hearing things. I mean, him and Steve Lipson aren't particularly. They're not like enamored of mastering engineers. They don't understand why their final thing will be altered in any way, shape, or form. So I got Trevor to send some of our mixes to a guy called Bob Ludwig in America, who he'd never worked with, who Mutt Lange used to use when I worked with him. And Trevor said, this guy's fantastic. But then what that made Trevor do was do new mixes that sounded like what Bob Ludwig had sent us.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
I don't know if I've explained that very well. But it's like micro detail.
Yeah.
Micro detail for someone that has Trevor's brain. He's like, him and Steve Lipson, they're like in another place in terms of their understanding of sonics.
Yeah. So were you involved much with his reunion with Take That and Progress?
No.
When they did that? No.
Not at all.
I didn't get involved in that. I went to a few of the shows.
Yeah.
But that's Gary's domain.
Yes.
The only thing that came out of that is I introduced Gary to Steve Power.
Ah, right. Okay.
Oh, yeah, and then, of course, they worked together.
Yeah, and then they ended up working together for a bit.
Yeah.
And we did nearly... Gary and Rob started a duets record, but it just...
Oh, yeah.
And then he
talked about that.
Then he did Take the Crown instead.
Yeah. Well, we were in Los Angeles, Steve Power, Gary, Rob and myself at Rob's house, doing some demoing and basic recording. And at the point where they'd come off the Progress tour and were getting on famously, and something spooked Rob.
Yeah.
Something happened one afternoon,
Yeah.
Who knows? But so where Rob went, no, this isn't going to work. And you know how Rob met
Tim and Flynn?
Yeah, Tim and Flynn.
Yeah, through Dylan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what Dylan did?
Through the Connect, his band.
Dylan brought Tim and Flynn back to Rob's house late one night when they'd all been out for a few cocktails. And I think there was a security guy living in the house at the time called Pompey.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Pompey thought they'd been broken into.
Oh, no.
You could hear all this racket in the studio. And as Pompey has survived Afghanistan, Kosovo, you don't want Pompey rocking up on you thinking you're up to no good.
No.
Right? But apparently, from other people that were in the army not the army, in the what was he? Was he a Marine?
Yeah, I think it's a Marine. Yeah.
Are they called what are they called now? They're like the SAS of the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
Like Gary was in them
Commandos.
too.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Special Boat Service?
Not sure.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I'm not very good on the military. Anyway, Pompey was the one who didn't duck. So they're like, when the shooting started, everyone dropped behind cover. Pompey just stand there.
Okay.
Either mad or brave or both. Anyway, so Pompey's rocked up there, found Tim and Flynn and Dylan basically off their tits. And Dylan's like showing them around the studio like he's got something to do with it. And I think Rob gets up and an hour later they're writing songs.
That's so funny.
And it's very hard. Tim and Flynn have an energy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
They're kind of slightly irresistible. That's a similar thing. I'm sort of flown in to sit in the room and sort of try and figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And I don't think Tim and Flynn would hate me for saying this. At this point, I didn't get the feeling they had enough experience to finish to produce and mix a Robbie Williams album.
Yeah.
Right.
And at this point, Rob wasn't interested in sort of, an hour's journey to a studio to work with someone new on the record production front. And I was thinking around people that lived not too far away that weren't hard-nosed pop producers that Rob might get on with.
Yeah.
And we came up with Garrett, Jackknife Lee.
Yeah.
Who I didn't know that well, but he's an artist being a record producer. So he's much more collaborative in the way he works. He's got a unique studio workspace, so you don't feel like you're in a studio. I mean, I would say Jackknife Studio is like he's removed the stuff in the studio that gets you, that puts a wall up between the artist and the producer.
Yeah.
So it's just like a sort of place to make music. I really like Garrett's. I really like his approach. But he's another artist, and he's quite combative. So in the course of making the record, he might have told Rob what to do once or twice too many, but he put a great band together. I mean, we had a few near misses on that record that would have been great. Rivers Cuomo, Weezer, was going to play on the record, but he was on a silent retreat, so he wouldn't be around. But again, it's just you're just trying to make the best record you can.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there were some very good songs that Rob went off.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, they did end up on Under the Radar.
Yes.
Yeah.
But some of them should have been on it.
I wouldn't say of all the stuff he wrote with Tim and Flynn, if I was honest with myself, I think some good songs got left off.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, again, this, if Rob's not feeling it, we were trying to get finished. I think sometimes he's not happy with a lyric.
Yeah.
And he'll go back, and if he can't find the repair he's looking for, then the song gets parked.
Yep.
Because in the short term, so in his mind, so in the writer's mind, he's not finished the song in a way that he's happy with it.
Yeah.
That's really what's happened. In the record producer and the A&R man's mind, here's something that could have been a single if only we could have got it finished.
Yeah.
But what's the point? It's like the song exists. I mean, there are lots of artists that write stuff and then 10 years later, Neil Young's a really good example of someone who clearly wakes up 10 years later and finishes a song and it ends up on the next record.
Yeah.
And that can happen with Rob. He's got loads of songs that he really, really loves. I've heard most of them, but he's got stuff I haven't heard.
Yeah.
That will turn up one day somewhere.
I hope so.
Hundreds on his laptop. He always says that.
No, he's got so much stuff. and he forgets what he sent you. So every now and then he'll send me, have I sent you this? You've got this, haven't you? I went, nope, never heard it before in my life. Went, oh, shit, I thought I'd sent it to you. And so on. So, yeah. I'm repeating myself. But if you don't pay attention to that,
so
into the ditch we go.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Robbie Williams, and you're listening to Robbie Williams Rewind with the Champions.
So was the record company more supportive when Rob wanted to release another swing album?
I think by then, I think it was established that it worked.
Yeah.
And also, it's now part of his. It's an aspect of his character art.
Oh yeah. It just embodies swing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And he's in a different zone when he's doing that.
That second swing record's very different.
Oh yeah. So lots of originals.
Yeah. So it's there are more original songs.
Yeah.
And it's a development.
Yeah.
It's not just volume 2.
No.
Of some,
It's quite bold, really, when you think about it.
It's very bold.
Yeah.
But then that's the whole point.
Yeah.
It
worked.
I mean, so, there was no pushback on that.
And then the Under the Radar series. What did you think about that being released just through his website rather than a normal record release?
Well, that was a management decision. Again, you've got... It goes back to, I could use the Rudebox analogy again. Unless these songs are released, there's like a roadblock in Rob's head. He's written these songs. He really likes them. He wants them out there in one form or another.
Yeah.
When you're, going back to why he got such a kicking over Rudebox, when the expectations, rightly or wrongly, are that you're just supposed to have that continuous success, and that's, when you want to do something different as a successful artist, there's this sort of ultra conservative pushback on you, that where people just want more of the same, which makes no sense to me. So it's part of the process. If this stuff doesn't see fresh air, then how's he going to get to the next phase?
Yeah.
Right? Because he's listening to this stuff thinking, I want to finish this and get it out there.
Right.
And I think the idea came from management, because was to take the less commercial stuff and put it out that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Because the moment you put anything out through a major label with Robbie Williams' name on it,
yeah,
right? Yeah. And this is what history tells you, even if you tell everybody, look, we're not putting this out to have hits, right?
Yeah.
This is mainly for the fan base.
Yeah.
Right. We're not trying to have angels and that. Whatever you say, no one hears you.
No. Yeah.
The media certainly doesn't.
No, the media particularly
They'll
don't
tell their
hear
own
you.
story about it. Yeah.
Well, the record companies don't hear you.
No.
They don't want to hear you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just
What
want
people want
Yeah.
is they want Escapology Mark 5.
So certainly the fan community, we can certainly say, really appreciated
Yeah.
under
Absolutely.
the
But
radars
I think
coming
that
out. So
was
there
the
a
sensible thing
connection
to
there.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it would either evolve, it would develop a life of its own. I think you see more and more of this happening with streaming,
Yeah.
where the market, it's fan-led.
Yeah.
The market tells you now what's going on.
Yeah.
You thinking you can ram it down people's throats with a big marketing budget, I think those days are over.
Right. It's the other
They've been
way
over
around.
for a while.
Yeah.
I think you can see it with, I think it's not an ideal thing, but when you see an old track developing on TikTok, one of my least favorite acronyms, UGC, user generated content.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, what it has done, if you're 16 and you hear Dreams by Fleetwood Mac for the first time, that's new music to you.
Yeah.
So the whole notion of releasing new music's been turned upside down, because if you're hearing it for the first time, it's new to you.
Yeah.
And people are discovering. There's one that everyone's chasing this week, and it's Sade.
Right.
So someone's done a almost like an old school house snippet. Is it Your Love Is King? I can't remember which song it is. Oh no, Smooth Operator.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a Smooth Operator sort of dance mix knocking about. Now, 90% of the people hearing that, probably more, don't know who Sade is. Have never heard the song. But to them, it's new music.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is happening more and more.
Yeah.
And of course, it distorts everything, because TikTok doesn't care if you're an artist, an established artist, somebody's personal trainer who's decided to make a record.
Yeah.
It's beyond neutral. And you're now trying to pick things out of it that aren't just one-offs.
Yeah.
So far, TikTok's largely produced one-offs.
Yeah.
I can't think. Little Nas X maybe in America. I'm trying to think what looks like. And also, people are smart, and one or two people have gamed social media with artists that they've been working on forever.
Right. Yeah. Bound to
I think,
happen.
like people that like smart operators like Scooter Braun, they've had an active development for 5 years and then make it look like it's broken through social media. Right? So from a safe distance, it looks like the public discovered it.
Yeah.
And no, there were no manipulative hands on it. But it's very hard to game social media. The public seem to have quite a good instinct for when they're being, defrauded.
Yeah.
Strangely. But you've got that element now. Rob's not interested in TikTok at all.
No.
Just not the least bit interested.
Yeah.
But it's that world. I mean, TikTok will die. There'll be something else.
Yeah, it will. Yeah.
It's not forever.
No.
It's just very influential in real time. Anyway.
So Rob was very determined he wanted an album of potential singles when he released Heavy Entertainment Show. How vital is the music as time goes on?
How vital is the music?
Yeah.
Well, commercially, I think it's harder. Once you're at a point where you've got 14 or 15 albums out there, how much more of your music do people that aren't your hardcore fan base want to own?
Yeah.
Or consume these days, because you don't really own music anymore.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure there's some data study somewhere on it that I'm not interested enough in, but there's a sort of I don't know how to put this into words. See, to me, you've still got to make music of, even if at this point you're largely making records for the fan base, that's your audience, right?
Yeah.
So don't ignore them.
Yeah.
Right? Don't skip them looking for some imaginary new broad audience. You're if you're at the stage Rob's in his recording career, you want to serve your audience first.
Yeah.
And then if it spreads beyond that, great. Everyone wants to have hits, and you can. It's interesting. In America, there was a sort of turning point a few years back where there were some sort of adult indie bands that had some success, like Imagine Dragons, Maroon 5. They're writing with the same people. They've just, basically, the band don't have to go to the studio anymore because they're not on the record. The singer is a solo artist. Like Adam Levine's is basically, the Adam Levine records branded as Maroon 5.
Yeah.
He's just making he's in the same Max Martin and everyone else that works in that world. It's he's decided that the way to survive is just to have pop hits. Now, even Coldplay, it's like they've reached a certain point where they've gone, no, we don't. We can work with Max Martin. We can do a record with some we can do K-pop records.
Yeah.
We can do what we like.
Yeah.
So they're doing that just to have hits.
Yeah.
It's funny with Rob, he's not particularly interested. Before, what was it, after Escapology? He met Max Martin at a point where Max Martin was, he's been hot for a long time, right? But we had a meeting with Max Martin, and it's not that Rob doesn't think the guy's incredibly clever and talented, but he met him and didn't get whatever that feeling he needs.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I learned very early about Rob is he's not going to do it in cold blood.
No.
There's got to be a reason. It's why he likes writing all the time. He's an artist. Yeah. And I think that's something he doesn't, he's never got, I don't think he's ever really been credited for how much of how much of a writer he actually is.
No, he hasn't.
And I think that's that weird stigma. It's a very English thing because you were in a pop group. It can't be cool.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be fucking cool. You can't be an artist. You know what I mean? It's nonsense. It's utter fucking nonsense.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's still there. That there's something different.
Yes.
Because you were an indie band for an album.
So what did 25 giving Rob his 14th number one album do for his career, do you think?
Very good question. I think there was a whole discussion about that I think starts with part of something that I think continually, it used to chip away at David and Tim, and the reason that they left Universal is there was an ongoing discussion with the management and the hierarchy at Universal about getting some ownership on the first 5 albums.
Yeah.
And if you look at David and Tim's history, I mean, David's King Crimson was the management funded the album and it was licensed. So David had a big thing, and Tim has it too, about the artist owning their music.
Yeah.
And it just being licensed to record labels to market.
Right.
You know, but I think they both had that. I mean, since I first met David in 1968, that's what he always believed. Right? And if you look at all his, and through David's history in the music business, that's what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
So it was always on. There was an agenda with David and Tim about them owning all the catalogue.
Yeah.
And I think, I know they had discussions with Lucien Grange and David Joseph that for one reason or another didn't reach any kind of conclusion. And I remember David calling me from outside Universal when they used to be on Kensington High Street, spitting feathers. Mm-hmm. I think had a meeting at Universal that didn't go the way David and Tim wanted it to go. And, basically, he was, he could lose his temper, David. I mean, he really could lose his temper. There was a whole other side of him. Such a charming man. If he lost it,
oh dear,
absolutely fucking lost it. Anyway, he lost it, and I happened to pick the phone up and listen to him losing it about Universal. So I wandered round to Jason Eiley very quickly. I went, opportunity. I said, I think they've fallen out with Universal, apparently. Jason didn't immediately. I mean, I'd have thought the same thing in Jason's position. I'm the CEO. Am I going to get used? Are they going to use me to bargain up the Universal deal?
Yeah.
I mean, no. I think what I had to get across to Jason is they'd had a terminal falling out with Lucien and David, a terminal falling out. And that it was open to Sony to get involved with the future releases. So the background to XXV is Rob owning some recordings of his biggest songs. Right? And we talked about various ways of doing it. We had one conversation, actually, where Guy suggested that Greg Wells, who's I've known for years, Greg Wells did the soundtrack to The Greatest Showman.
Right.
And he's like an American version of Guy.
Okay.
Plays everything, sing the theme tune, write the theme tune, play the theme tune. It's another one of these sickeningly talented, play any instrument, good at record production. Like, make a rock record, can make a pop record, can do an orchestral record. Sickeningly talented. Anyway, as it turned out, Greg's very expensive, so that didn't fly. So it came back round to Guy doing it. And then when they talked to Rob, it wasn't like a thing that Rob... I mean, I don't know if you've got this impression. I didn't think it was that important to Rob.
What, marking the 25th anniversary? No, it wasn't.
Yeah, no.
I think it was important to management.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the label liked the idea.
Yeah.
But I think the person that was least bothered about his 25th anniversary was Rob.
Yeah,
he doesn't go in for anniversaries and birthdays or marking... certainly marking any kind of... Yeah.
If on his birthday, I send him a one-line email, stumbled round the sun again, then have we for another year? I think he never acknowledges my birthday or, nothing.
No.
Christmas, once out the way, we'd usually start work again. A number of times I've got on a plane on New Year's Eve to go to Los Angeles to start recording. He doesn't, it's just not him. So, I think the concept of owning something.
Yeah.
But then when it came to it, sort of from a creative point of view, Rob actually wanted the songs to be closer to the originals than probably Guy had. I think Guy had thought, let's get some reinterpretations. Maybe get some artists we've worked with in the past who are Robbie Williams fans. Do that. I mean, all these different things were talked about. I mean, there's an album that was put out after Warren Zevon died of a lot of people that he's collaborated with or friends doing their versions of his songs.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Which is quite a nice thing to do.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the 25th anniversary, anniversaries are a commercial opportunity. But I don't think that interested Rob at all. I mean, he didn't make it to the studio. He went to Mustique instead.
Yeah.
Oh, no. He was on Mustique, and he was going to fly to Amsterdam to sing live with the orchestra. And then I think, did I talk to Gary? I said, Rob hasn't turned up in Holland. He's in Los Angeles. I don't think, I mean, it's not Guy's, it's nobody's fault. But, and I don't think, because it was during lockdown.
Yeah.
I don't think, I hadn't communicated. Lockdown was weird. I think I communicated less with Rob during lockdown than I probably should. I don't know. I didn't have that conversation with him.
No.
And I think with the benefit of hindsight, I don't know. I mean, it's a good record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the versions are brilliant.
Well, yeah, they are, yeah.
We've been trying to get him to bring Lost back into the live set, but no, we had that discussion with him and it wasn't working for him. And we're still trying to convince him, but I don't think we're going to get there.
No, I think there are territories. I think I went to Eastern Europe and the discussion about Lost was still going on, and he dropped it from the set.
After London, after the first two shows.
Because he thought the audience died. Mm. He felt he'd lost the audience.
Yeah.
But it wasn't.
But doesn't that happen when you listen to a new song where you're not quite sure how to react? We were trying to sort of talk to him about that.
But it's interesting because, and it's not just Rob. So, for example, Love My Life got the same reaction other big hits get. Mm-hmm. So that that went in the set.
Oh, okay.
After it was a hit.
So there was a noticeable reaction with that one on the first go round.
It didn't. I remember. Was it the Etihad? I remember thinking or saying to someone, "Isn't that interesting? Like they know all the. They're singing this back to him, like it's one of the old hits.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's connected." And we, for whatever reason, stood on stage. And there were lots of reasons. As an artist, right, you go out, you can't ignore the fact that everyone's spent a lot of money buying a ticket and getting there. You've got to sing them the hits.
Yeah.
And there might be one or two of those hits that you don't love so much anymore.
Yeah.
Like Rob doesn't like the lyric to Millennium.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For example.
Yeah.
And it sometimes goes back in the set because it was a huge hit.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then a couple of nights later, he turns to Carl and says, I think recently they were going to, when they were doing these, this run of shows they're on now, because they put Supreme back in the set.
Yeah. And then it went out again.
Out again.
Yeah.
So there were various songs that he either doesn't enjoy singing.
Yeah.
Or with the passage of time, he's wish he'd written a different lyric or, doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. To him, the reason for singing it has gone.
Yeah.
So, and it's, it says Robbie Williams on the tin, not Carl Brazil or Chris Briggs or Michael Loney.
Yeah, true.
So, he can do what he likes.
Yeah,
really.
exactly.
Well, if you're not feeling it, again, with the kind of performer that he is, if he's not feeling it, even though he's a great actor, if he's not feeling it, it doesn't feel right. And I get it.
I mean, if I was honest, I think there are probably too many covers in this current set, but we've had that conversation.
Yeah.
It's just my opinion.
Yeah. We'd agree.
We would agree.
And I think,
there's a difference.
His fan base have paid to come and hear the hits.
Yeah, they have. But there's a difference between the very hardcore fan community, which we represent, and then everybody else. So we appreciate that. We appreciate there are people that won't know under the radar B-sides or more obscure things, and that can't possibly be in a set.
I loved that under the radar gig.
Oh, it was the best. It's my favourite gig ever.
It was fantastic, wasn't it? What a great night.
It was brilliant.
Yeah, the best. So you've remained working with Rob even when you've been signed to a record company different to the one
I have an arrangement. So at various points, it depends. From every company wants something, it has a different way of doing things. I've been able, for a period, I had my own company, and then some people would rather you were an employee. But if I'm moving from one place to another, if they don't, it's part of the thing I don't want to give up.
Yeah.
When you're negotiating your new deal, whoever's looking after me will say, and by the way, he'll be A&R and Robbie Williams, whatever label he's on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, providing Rob still wants me to A&R him, of course.
Yeah.
And if the answer's no,
then you don't go.
I don't go.
Lovely.
So it's just been how it is, and it seems to be accepted. I think because I've done it for so long, because I've been doing it. I work with people that weren't born when I met Rob. So anyway, it'll be up to Rob to shoot me,
right?
So that's just how it rolls.
Yeah.
I had the same thing when I left EMI. I did the same thing with Laura Marling. They didn't have anyone there that was sort of that she knew or wanted to work with. So I did the next couple of Laura Marling albums.
Yeah.
In the same arrangement. It's not uncommon.
Okay.
I think these days. Yeah. Certainly, I didn't have any problem with EMI or with Sony.
Right.
And Universal were quite happy because there's intense rivalry between these major labels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was all it's like worse than football. But they were, when Ireland were releasing Robbie's records, it was, who was it? It was Marcus, Darkus and Ted. They let me come to all the meetings. There was no kind of problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's all very much about the personalities that are there at the time. It's not
sure
anything else.
And you've talked about this a lot already, but what do you think the key reasons are for Rob's career longevity?
I think that we paid attention to the quality of everything.
Yeah.
All the way through. That we made, that we didn't. I think there have been times when I think that's another thing that Rob's less bothered about. But I think I have to believe this, otherwise my reason to exist is evaporated, that the attention to detail and the quality of the recordings, and I got this very early, working particularly with Chris Thomas, that if you make something as excellent as it can be, it'll just last longer.
Mm.
So it's a bit of an abstract concept, but it's in my head that you're looking, when anything's being recorded, I very quickly think, that's going to date.
Right.
So if anyone's playing, if there's a particular keyboard sound and you're in the room and you think, that sounds old already.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't explain to you why I think that.
Right.
It's you just know.
Years of experience.
But what you're looking for is timeless.
Mm-hmm.
Is stuff that won't, I don't know. It's a very hard thing to put into words.
I get it. We're biased because we're fans, but I do feel that with a lot of Rob's music. It does feel
it's
timeless.
meant to be timeless.
Yeah.
It's meant to last. It's been, Guy used to think the same, and Steve Power the same.
Yeah.
And our examples were sort of American artists that had an enormously long shelf lives, where the records were very, very, were beautifully recorded.
Yeah.
I think I remember playing, doing something with Steve Power, and we were listening to Wildflowers, Tom Petty, which is a very good example of a record that will never sound old.
Fascinating.
And there's so much stuff, particularly in the the sort of, there are so many electronic sounds that just date. They're just dated in, almost as you're listening to them, they sound old. I get that a lot in dance music.
Yeah.
This sound's not going to live for very much longer, is it?
Yeah.
So it's, you're looking for timeless. Yeah. And the, I don't know any other way of putting it.
Yeah.
No, that's good. And how hard is it working with Rob when in his head he's always moving on to the next thing?
I don't find it hard. I mean, it's like, you just got to deal with reality, haven't you? I mean, it's like, they're not my ideas. They're not my songs. Like, I either, if I can in any way bring, think of someone to get involved in it that might improve it, and all you're trying to do is, I've said it already, I'm a facilitator.
Yeah.
I'm not telling him what to do. He's telling us what he wants to do.
So you help him do it.
And he might not have every member of that team in place to do it. And sometimes people start and they fall over. So you're kind of facilitating and monitoring.
Yeah.
And getting it over the line in as good a shape as it can be got over the line. And he's got to love it.
Yeah.
It's the most simple way of putting it, I think.
So in a way, you're continuing to provide that continuity while he's thinking ahead to his new ideas. You're trying to keep things moving and running, and in a way that kind of, I don't know. These are very hard things to articulate. Yeah.
But it makes sense in my head, because now there's a body of work out there.
Yeah.
I can see how it all links together.
Yeah.
It all makes sense in my head.
Yeah.
And you're trying to not, I mean, there are certain things that just wouldn't work.
Yeah. So, just before we wrap up this episode, make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out. And also, Lucy and I would really appreciate it if you can leave us a star rating. You can do this on both Apple and Spotify podcasts. We would also love it if you could write us a short review, and you can do this on Apple. Don't forget, you can check out our episode notes for each episode and links to all tracks and videos at robbiewilliamsrewind.com. You can also email us at email@robbiewilliamsrewind.com. Please also follow and chat on our social channels. It's @RewindRobbie on Twitter, Instagram and TikTok. And you can also like and follow our Facebook page, Robbie Williams Rewind. And before we return to this episode, you might also consider sending us one of your own Robbie stories for the show. Just record a short audio clip on your phone and email it to us. Please check the website for more details. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Robbie Williams, and you're listening to Robbie Williams Rewind with the Champions.
Obviously, you've worked with a plethora of different artists and musicians. But
I don't have a genre.
But so what do you like particularly about working with Rob, given your vast experience?
Good. That's a very good question. I think I think over and above just understanding what someone's trying to do musically, you do make connections with people.
Yeah.
That in the way you think, what you find funny, what you believe in, what you understand about, stuff above and beyond, our day jobs. So I think somewhere we've made that connection.
Yeah. Whatever
that connection is, without sounding too airy-fairy about it.
So no, I get it.
Yeah. And I think at the time, we were, it's interesting. David, Tim, and myself had been in the music business a long time.
Yeah.
And none of us were in the middle of any kind of great commercial success.
Right.
I mean, another year I might have been shot.
Mm.
And Rob had come out of Take That without, and he wasn't the one that was expected to be successful. So you've got these three old blokes with their backs to the wall, and the least expected ex-member of Take That to have a hit this month, all falling into each other's lives. And I think there's a connection there.
Yeah.
Because we did something, we didn't do it in the way that we were expected to. It made sense to all of us. And regardless of the pushback from the outside world, we didn't lose our confidence.
No.
Right? So whatever, I don't know, it's again, when you all understand the same thing, so somewhere between Tim, Rob, David, Guy, we were all sort of on the same path.
Yeah.
I mean, don't necessarily all stay on that same path forever.
No. Mm-hmm.
Rob and Guy have had their ups and downs. But people change.
Mm-hmm.
People learn, no one just stays in the same place. Relationships don't all stay the same. But, I don't know. I don't know. I find that a very hard thing to talk about.
Yeah, I understand.
But there is some sort of relationship.
Yeah.
It's not just based on music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you, Chris, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you and hear all your stories. An
incredible journey through your amazing experience and your experience with Rob. For us, it puts another part of the puzzle together as to why Rob is still doing what he's doing so successfully, I think.
Robbie Williams Rewind.